Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful. My name is KASIM Omar Dinle, with ID number CJSSO 00068-628. I studied the program of Master of Project Management. Here I'm just going to present an assignment of Science and Technical Research Methodology. I am in semester 4 or May 2021. My facilitator of this course is Dr. Yunus Ali. The introduction. This paper of Science and Technical Research Methodology is a coursework assignment required by Center for Postgraduate Studies, CPS, SIMAD University with partnership Open University Malaysia, OUM. The main purpose of this assignment is to enlighten how insecurity affected on the implementation time of construction projects in Somalia since the collapse of internationally recognized government in 1991. The chief intention of this study is that in terms of insecurity, there are some evildoers who emerge from their hideouts and are deliberately subject to devastation on the innocent citizens. The title which I have chosen is Effects of Insecurity on Implementation Time of the Construction Project. Here is the background of this study. We know that it is true that the backbone of human life is security and peace. The most valuable bounties that the omnipotent Allah, God, has bestowed upon His creatures are peace and security. Such bounties of Almighty Allah, God, secure an individual's soul, religion, wealth, and security, wealth, property, and the environment. The assurance of safety and security is the best ways that a person can get sufficient subsistence or living. This means that if there is insecurity, both any kind of foodstuff and the beverages will remain tasteless or useless. In short, good examples about peace and insecurity could be that famine or an extreme scarcity of food, destitute or poverty, plus huge retrogression does evolve from insecurity, whereas prosperity and satisfaction can go together with peace and security. In addition, nations in growth and progress, civilization, and multiple developments in terms of peace and security, overwhelmed by them. Peace and security are the sources of pacification, serenity, tranquility, prosperity, making continuous forward movements and development. Therefore, peace and security is an essential factor of human life. Remember that where there is no peace, there is no life. Somalis exemplify security or peace as breast full of milk, whereas insecurity is like a dry breast that does not supply any milk to its feeder or baby. However, let us little bit go back to on 21st October 1969. While junta or group of Somali army officers seized the power by a bloodless coup d'etat, they first prioritized measures to be tranquilized and stabilized citizens' safety and security throughout the Somali territory. Peace and security at that time had brought into the site the establishment of many useful factories. It is something deserved to remind to everyone that 16 factories were established or built in that period. Insecurity, however, situation is created by when there is conflict or crisis in a community. Conflict connotes, as we all know, that disagreement, imbalance, or distortion in beliefs, values, and the situations between or among individuals, persons, groups, communities, states, tribes, and countries. No nation can develop when there is high level of insecurity in the society. Somali nation consists of pastoral, agricultural, and coastal communities. Insecurity is similar to withering, giving no shades, fruitless, lack of foliage, and the unattractive tree. Insecurity is the chief source of less development, lagging behind from moving forward international community. The bitter and fatal civil war in the 1980s led to collapse of Somalia's central government in 1991, while armed faction of United Somali Congress, USC, ousted out of the capital city the former president Mohamed Yabbar. Following this, various groupings of Somali clan-based rebels, sometimes supported by outside forces, sought to control the national territory or portions thereof and fought one another. In 1990 up to 1992, customary law temporarily collapsed due to the fighting. This precipitated the arrival of UNISOM 1 UN military observers in July 1992, followed by larger peacekeeping forces. On July 2014, up to 150 internally displaced families have reached at Jilib Marka, which is a very small coastal village that is in distance about 70 kilometers from Mogadishu. The cause of fleeing these families have evolved from while two fierce confrontations took place repeatedly in the lower Shabelle region's capital city of Marka. There were 480 school-aged children with these families fled from Marka. In fact, these children desperately had needed for learning centers or schools for them, since they have left from their homeland. However, some quagmire effects from insecurity have badly affected implementation of the school building project, while unruly self-organized army men did operate in the areas between Somali government controlled zone and the Al-Shabaab militia controlled zone. These unruly armed young men hindered deliverance of necessary materials which could make that construction project feasible. They imposed too much extortive payment on each lorry that was transporting construction materials to the project site. Thus, the Somalis' insecurity is like a hydra-headed social problem. Now I'm just going to talk about problem statement and the research gap. Besides common factors causing delay of construction projects are included financial, as we all know, difficulties faced by client, poor site management and the supervision, lack of sufficient cash for project implementation, and the delay in receiving progress payments by contractors. The main intention of this study is to uncover how insecurity that exists in Somali territory influences implementation of some crucial projects to develop communities. This study highlights the importance of acknowledging, besides the most significant factors that affect the implementation of the construction project, and that there are sometimes groups, example unruly armed ones in Somalia, who resulted from insecurity, set up obstacles, bringing to postpone main activity of a project until later time. It also elucidates that every trouble comes with its tormentor. In talking about research objectives, the main objectives of the research will broadly focus on the following crucial points as: 1. To reveal how insecurity affects implementation of the crucial project since the collapse of strong and internationally recognized Somali government in 1991. Second, to shed a light on that insecurity breeds evildoers who are committed of doing deliberate acts to harass vulnerable ones, which I mean victims of the insecurity. Third, to investigate some impassable obstacles that discourage as well hamper today those who want to provide humanitarian aid for the needy ones. To explore best ways to find a solution as to implement any project in terms of such problems, which I mean insecurity, by the tribal chieftains. It will also highlight us to dig out and disseminate awareness of when two elephants fight, it is the grass that truly trembles. And the last, to set up a warning beacon that shows clearly telephone imposters who get illegal money through false extortion. In research questions, the chief questions of the study will focus or consolidate on the following points. Question 1. How lack of security or insecurity affects implementation of so much promptly needed projects in Somalia from the dusk, which I mean fall of military regime. Second, why insecurity is hide out of some tormentors or those who inflict severe mental or physical suffering on innocent people. Third, why those who seek to promote the welfare of insecurity victimized people, I mean philanthropists, do often face hurdles or difficulties. The fourth question is, what is the significant role that chieftains play during an implementation project while it encounters hindrance? The scope of the research. In fact, the study focuses on how insecurity affected implementation of some projects in Somalia since the collapse of the central authority. The study particularly pinpoints at certain projects that intended to construct a school for internally displaced people, especially families who fled from bitter conflicts. One is erupted in the lower Shabeelles regional capital of Merka in July 2014. The families whom that fight had enforced them to settle temporarily at Jilib Merka village, which locates in between Mogadishu and the Merka towns. Therefore, all school-aged children needed to get schools. The study is going to illustrate problems encountered project managers and the traditional leaders, which I mean chieftains, during the implementation of the project from unruly armed young men. Here I'm just going to talk about the design of the research. The research design is a descriptive cross-sectional survey, and it will be using qualitative approaches or methods to this research. Survey research is defined, as we all know, as the collection of information from a sample of individuals through their responses to questions. I'm also just going to talk about instruments of the research, which I'm going to use in it. The research instruments, as we all know, is a researcher's tool for data collection and serves as the mechanism for gathering data about the concept or attributes of interest. A research instrument can include, as we all know, interviews, tests, surveys, or checklists. But the instrument which I'm going to use in my research, as I'm just going to tell you, is that I have used different instruments that included useful plan and action to collect information, such as standardized questionnaires, and direct observations. This research is going to conduct as it basis on both primary and secondary data. The primary data is going to collect through by using a structured questionnaire, which that will be administered by the researcher. By the researcher. The researcher, will collect the secondary data from articles on web pages and the online databases using document analysis. Now, in sampling techniques of my study, as we all know that sampling is the process of selecting a number of individuals for a study in such way that individuals selected represent the large group from which they were selected as the population. We all know that there are two sampling techniques. The first one is probability sampling, and the second is non-probability sampling. So if I give you some clear definitions or explanations about these two sampling techniques, first one is probability sampling that involves random selection, allowing the researcher to make strong statistical inferences about the whole group. Whereas the second, which is non-probability sampling, engages in non-random selection based on convenience or other criteria, allowing the researcher easily to collect the data. Therefore, probability sampling is a sampling technique that I, the researcher, have chosen to gather the information from the respondents as chieftains, internally displaced families, especially those who temporarily settled at Chilipmarka village, chairpersons of some local NGOs who implement projects which funded by international relief organizations, civil society organizations, Somali political critics, and philanthropists. The method of data collection. You know that data collection is a process of collecting information from all the relevant sources to find answers to a research problem, test the hypothesis, and evaluate the outcomes. So, the data of this research will verily gather with a standardized questionnaire by the researcher. The asking sentences or questions that they need to put in this set of questions or questionnaire will make by the researcher. Now, I want to talk about method of data analysis. The most significant aspect of the study will be data analysis, which will focus on discovering the data in the research findings. In terms of appropriate approach, a standardized questionnaire with structured and semi-structured questions are recommended. All data collected will be analyzed using with SPSS, tables, charts, and graphs to transform them into useful information. The data will first be analyzed with descriptive statistics to provide a picture of the data set. The SPSS program would facilitate data entry, editing, imputation for missing data and non-response, weighting of data and the calculation and the tabulations of result. The last of my presentation is conclusion. Since peace is the backbone of all mankind, the key that leads people to step towards progress and permanent development. Insecurity nowadays brings into the sight that investors do not dare to make investment, massive disruptions, displacement of the people, huge unemployment, lack of benefiting from natural resources, becoming dependent on donated materials, negligence of future fruits, which I mean children or generation, and migrations. Insecurity also made people today to become susceptible for both natural disasters and the man-made problems. But now we are talking about in Somalia, at the dawn of being in the state of disorder, due to non-recognition of authority from 1991, things looked like as a glass which someone held upside down. So insecurity that commenced from the collapse of the military regime has made Somalis to remain in chaos that drawn so many of them to choose doing of evil acts. Proceeding from this point onward, many international relief organizations have devoted to give tangible help for Somalis as to implement some crucial different projects. Therefore, this research clarifies how insecurity affected many needed projects which were desired to implement in different regions throughout Somali territory. And this brings me to the end of video presentation. Thank you for watching it.